February 6th, when the show started, basically is when this whole thing got started. Actually, I wanted to give thanks to Fellman, William Brown, as well as to Sister Rock as being the executive producer, the one who really holds everything down, puts everything together, puts all the pieces together here and there. But happy
Absolutely.
2-year anniversary of Groove Swing Speaks. I'm not sure what you celebrate with the specific gift. I know 1 year is paper, but 2 years, I'll have to look that up. So just you're here like on a special evening. So tell your friends, family, kids, gather around, tune in, listen up, and keep your mind
Absolutely.
open.
Absolutely. And we have two special guests with us tonight. And let me do this. I'm going to, normally I do ladies first. The lady, the Reverend that's been on with us before, uh, Reverend Tam, affectionately known, she's been on before. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce Dr. Harris first, and then we're going to give Reverend Tam a proper introduction as well. Dr. Harris is an intervention scientist who divides his time between training, research, and consulting outside Raleigh, North Carolina. He's the co founder of Village of Care, CARE, a community based organization, education organization, and associate professor at the Chicago School, PhD counselor, education, and supervision programs online. Dr. Harris utilizes community based participatory research, CBPR, to improve health disparities and design intervention, prevention, and postvention programs in Black and Brown communities. With a focus and emphasis on suicide and trauma, this successful model has utilized barbershop, religious entities, skating parks, centers for the unsheltered, and community centers as an intervention point. He's also a member of the Distinguished Suicide Prevention Institute, SPI, at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Of all the titles and roles, his most important title is the role of husband, father, and community servant. Secondly, last but not least, we have Reverend Tam, or Rev Tam, rather. Uh, Reverend Tammy Russell Meadows earned her undergraduate degree from Virginia State University in 1982 and completed her Master of Divinity at Shaw University in 2013. She is currently enrolled and pursuing her Doctor of Ministry. She's a proud member of Swing Five Swing Social Fellowship Incorporated, affiliated with the Want To chapter at Virginia State University, and is sister number six. Rev Tam serves as a chaplain of the Raleigh graduate chapter of the Southeast region, a director of Swing Five Swing Social Fellowship Incorporated. Professionally, she is the CEO of RushMed Consultants, a provider agency serving children and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, with a specialized focus on autism. In ministry, Reverend Russell Meadows served as an associate pastor at Keep It Real Ministry and is chaplain for the Virginia State University Alumni Theatrical Ensemble, affectionately known as John Johns, Dukes and Zariah Mimi, and Zariah's Mimi, and proudly known in the land of swings as Reverend Tam. She walks in purpose, leadership, and service. Cheers, affectionately known and proud of it. Rev Tam, number six. Reverend Tam and Dr. Harris, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It's a pleasure having you here. There's a lot to unpack because you too do so much for your communities, especially when it comes to our children. And I want to bring on also Dr. Reverend Tam, one of your swing sisters, and that is Tanisha Holmes. Also, we have Tiffany Hilliard, and Robert and I. We are Grooves. So, welcome both of you to the panel.
Hey.
Turn your mics on. Okay. And let's start. Well, where do we start? Let's start with Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, doing well.
I'd like for you to tell us a little bit more about, break down your advocacy and counseling and education and your community-based projects, especially CBPR. Tell us,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
does CBPR do to improve the health and disparities and design intervention?
yeah. Community-based participatory research, what it does is it goes into the community to allow the community to help give the answer, look to the community to provide the answers. It listens to the community to obtain the data versus us telling them what's wrong. The community helps define the problems and helps come up with answers and helps come up with solutions. When I first started counseling, one of my mentors, who is a member of Swing, her name is Miss Betty Murchison. One of the things she told me was I was practicing in a very sterile, clean environment. She says, in order for counseling to work, sometimes you got to get dirty. And you got to go into places. You can't be afraid to get your hands dirty. And so she taught me that I had to go into the community where the people were. And so my trainer didn't teach me that. So, so you go where the people are, you listen to them, you obtain the data. You know, you listen to what they say, and you gather the data, and you allow the data to give you the story, and you make sense of that story, and you unpack it, and then you use that data to later translate to research efforts. That's ultimately what we do. So go into the community, use that data to tell stories, and all different forms, different places I go to. I go to barbershop, I go to skating parks, I divine intervention spaces, because oftentimes what we find is, particularly Black and brown youth, they won't go see a therapist, and so we have to design places where they feel comfortable to talk to people and create environments that are less threatening. And so if you want to hear the stories, you got to create atmospheres and environments that are less threatening. So that's a lot of what community-based participatory research does.
A lot of preachers do the same thing. They go into the community instead of waiting for people to come to the church. They go where the problem is, like you said, where your people that you're advocating for, they feel more comfortable speaking to you and have a conversation with these people. Like you're part of them, you're part of the community, and we are. But so anyway, I'm going to go around the table, and we're going to bring in Reverend Tam in a second. Or Reverend Tam, would you like to piggyback off of what Dr. Harris said? Is there anything you'd like to add to what he just said before we go around the panel?
So I want to say good afternoon, good evening, my sisters. Good evening to Sister Tiffany and to Sister Tanisha. And good evening, fellow men. And how are you doing, Dr. Harris? I think that we've had the privilege of meeting each other previously, correct?
Yes,
Do you
yes,
remember me?
Yes, I do.
Absolutely. So when I first met Dr. Harris, we were at a wellness, a mental health workshop that Betty had in Wake Forest, North Carolina. And so I believe, Dr. Harris, you were doing the haircuts.
Yeah. I brought the barbers with me.
Providing
the haircuts that we had trained.
Yes. So listen, I've seen his work and I know what he does. And you are absolutely correct, Fellowman Brown. It does correspond, because we don't care where we are. God, listen, the Bible says when a sheep strays from somewhere, God does never turn his back. He goes and get them, even if it's just one. And that's what our collaboration does. Doesn't matter who it is. Anybody that's out here that needs mental health, that is what we are here for. Doesn't matter whatever it is. There is no wrong door. I don't know if any of you remember that phrase, Dr. Harris, but back a couple of 10 years ago, George Bush made the saying. He said there was no wrong door for academics and for children. So there's no wrong door in mental health. We live in the state of North Carolina. And I want to say, I'm not sure, Dr. Harris, you might have the stats on that, but I think that we like number 4 in the country for our good mental health practices in this state.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So,
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, William.
No. You guys are doing fine. I'm loving what you do because mental health, we already know nationwide, mental health and mental illness is on the rise, even more so than probably when we were coming up. And I absolutely love what you are doing because the average person out here will not seek a therapist. The person who needs it the most are the least to come into a clinic or seek out a professional like yourself. So my hat is off to you, and I absolutely love it. And I love doing topics like this because it is something that really needs to be addressed, and it's underserved in this country. Let's go to Tiffany. Tiffany, what questions and or comments do you have for Dr. Harris and Reverend Tam?
All right. Good evening, everyone, and all my sisters. Okay, so my question will first go off to Dr. Harris. How did you even get started in your field?
Yeah. So I actually started. I had a cousin. Okay. Particularly with the suicide work I do, I had a cousin that was lost to suicide. And after that cousin was lost to suicide, I watched my aunt try to name it something else as she dealt with the shame and the stigma of suicide, and Rev Tam dealing with how the Black church framed it and not having any resources there. And so how she was trying to say it was something else. And then eventually she had to come to reality of what it was. And so I had to decide on the dissertation topic. And so I began to start some advocacy around helping her to get the mental health help that she needed, and helping her to get to a place of healing, and helping the church to get some resources so she could move to where she was, because she was losing and becoming so lost and so depressed and sinking into a place to where she couldn't even help herself. And so that was where my work and advocacy around suicide started. Now, fast forward, that started that year. Fast forward 20 years later, I bumped into Betty Murchison, and we started doing some work. And I said, Betty, after COVID, I said, there's something is happening. I said, we better pay attention. There's a child mental health crisis that's coming. And we started unpacking the data around the youth suicide rate, particularly Black youth suicide rate, that were increasing at an alarming rate that's doubling that rates that we haven't seen before. And we start doing some advocacy and paying attention to what's happened nationally, particularly in North Carolina, particularly in some of our eastern counties. And we started doing a great deal of advocacy work, help develop the Black youth suicide plan in North Carolina, and doing that. So that's what started my work. It went from my aunt, and then start doing some state level work, and start doing some county level work. And then that's how I really started dedicating my career to saving lives. Particularly for me, it started working with Black and brown boys, because that's what we were seeing. 10 to 24, and one of the fastest rates of suicide that are increasing is 5 to 10. And so we got 5 to 10-year-olds. So in looking at saving Black lives, and knowing that these rates are increasing, and seeing what we can do to develop advocacy and develop programs, and going to highways and byways, going places and doing things, developing interventions, going to barbershops, going to skate parks, going to churches, going to schools, doing whatever we need to do to reach our kids, and having this responsibility to take care of our community. The only way that we can, the only ways we can speak to our kids and care for our kids, knowing that nobody else is going to do it like we can. That time.
Awesome.
Reverend
Thank
Tam?
you for that.
Absolutely. And I agree with him too. I think now we've gotten finally to the point that we are not in the stereotypical realm anymore. I think that people are aware that there's a whole bunch of mental health crises going out here now. So now I think that there's a more open platform and that people are more willing to seek some help. There are all kinds of resources out here for it. And yes, it is attacking our community. When I found out those statistics and when I read that, I was alarmed. I was really shocked because that's just not something that on our side, in our culture, Black teen suicide, that kind of was not like unheard of. And when I was educated on that, I definitely, because of my profession and what I do, and we all work under human service. And so when I saw there was a need, I too reached out to the one and only Betty Murchison, who supplied us with all of the data, and we jumped on board. It's something that we would like to do and spread it throughout the states that my region oversees.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to put up your contact information. If you will give us that, we'll put that up on the board here in a second. And I just want to say this, then I want to go to Fellowman Hicks here. I have a friend whose son committed suicide. He was a teenager. I'm not exactly sure, 13, 14, whatever it is. He committed suicide. Now, a lot of things will cause a trauma or depression. And, like poverty can play a role in that, if you will agree with me on that. Bullying can play a role in that. And I never found out what was the real reason for that. Can you tell us some of the things that are affecting our youth that they may not share even with their parents? Because the dad came home one day and his son had hung himself in the closet. Now, nice home. I mean, money was an issue. The food or housing or anything, that wasn't an issue. And I never found out what the real reason was. But I know that the mother, for decades, she just wore black every day. Every day, just wore black. Can you tell us some of the things that's affecting our children that we as adults, especially parents, should look out for, that can possibly prevent what is happening? Both of you jump in anyway, Dr. Harris, then Reverend Tam. What are some of the things that's affecting our children and we overlook?
Yeah, I think, well, two things I think that we don't pay attention to is that we recognize the impact of what COVID did to our kids. And I think in addition to what COVID did to our kids, the isolation that was caused by that, the anxiety that was caused by COVID. And I think, of course, I know everyone would speak to the bullying that you spoke to. Of course, a big one that we're going to say, a big glaring one, is social media. The impact, as we look at screen time, we're seeing a lot of these studies, increased screen time and what it does for kids, and the link between increased screen time and depression and anxiety, and so just as we start to pay attention to that, as we start to pay attention to kids isolation, as we start to pay attention to LGBTQIA, that as we look, the kids, that those are some of the highest rates. And I think one point that you to make is that it crosses all demographic. So it's not, we don't look at, kids that are poverty. I know one recent study I read, it was middle to upper income. That one of the last studies I read, it was middle to upper income kids that were impacted by it. And so, we can't say, not having food, that may be a contributor to it, but it crosses all demographics. And we do know that particularly, like, there's certain ages that we pay attention to, particularly for boys. And right now it's Rev Tammy definitely, I'll probably both of us speak to it, but it's starting to change where it was predominantly male. We're starting to see something that's shifting and changing, that's scaring us a little, to we're starting to females and Black females, those numbers are increasing, and that was never the case. It was always the strong Black woman, the women, but we're starting to see something trend with the numbers and Black females that that are scary. And so as we're walking out for isolation, as we're watching for bullying, you know, and social media, phone usage, you know, all the pieces of that, you know, those are some of the signs, some of the factors, you know, that we begin to, you know, pay attention to. Changes in food, changes in mood, changes in friend groups. You know, you want to pay attention to those types of things. Those are some of what you want to pay attention to.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Very good. Let's see. Fellowman Clayton Brown is trying to get in. I'm going to send him the link. So I'm going to close my screen for a second. Robert, jump in anytime, my brother. What would you have to share, or questions or comments?
Thank you very much, WB. And thank you again, Reverend Tammy, for being here. Dr. Rodney Harris as well. Thank you for being here. The statistic that you mentioned, which was shocking, the idea of even children as young as 5 to 10 years old, where they're still developing their brains and their lives, is really almost blown away by that. And living in this, and as they are living in this era now of social media, pretty much they're just born with phones in their hands and social media around them. So that's even something more to be concerned about, especially levels of anxiety. So thank you definitely for bringing that up. My questions to both of you is in the idea of how basically can, say, for instance, not just only parents, but also people within our community, like, say, for instance, Groove Fi Groove, Swing Fi Swing, how we can be involved in being able to be a part of their lives, to be able to sort of be able to provide a little bit of a guidance or a little bit of assistance. What ways do you feel that we could help? So that's
so for us for me and for Swing Fi Swing, we have joined into a collaboration with Betty and Dr. Harris in for their nonprofit that they have established, and it is called Darkness Rising, right? So the Southeast region of Swing Fi Swing has joined forces in collaborating and trying to get the word out. This program is going to be in memory of one of our beloved sisters that also had the privilege of working with Dr. Rodney before she passed away, Dr. Gwen Keith Newsom. And so we're starting a foundation, and in this foundation, we're going to offer access to more education in suicide and suicide prevention. Our initiative is going to, first, we're going to focus on gun safety. And we're going to be giving our gun locks throughout 4 states. We're first going to start in our state, in North Carolina, and then we're going to spread out to South Carolina and Georgia and to Florida, because we cover those states as well.
And the reason that that's so important for us is because what we know is that the majority of gun deaths are caused, the majority of suicides are caused by guns. And so we recognize, and the data tells us, and that's one of the reasons that Rev Tam is, and the reason that they're targeting this is we want to reduce harm reduction. So they're starting with guns, and we know that we can get more gun locks into the communities, and that if we can get them into some of the places that can, and when we can reduce the amount of suicide that the data supports, if we can get more gun locks in community, when predominantly deaths, 70 to 80% of suicides are linked to, are not homicide. Gun deaths are not predominantly used for homicides. The majority of gun deaths are suicides. And so what we're trying to do is get these gun locks into communities to pursue both. We definitely want to pursue homicide and suicide, but we want to get them in there to reduce harm reduction. And I think probably the next part she was going to talk to was about the Narcan, and that's the next part of harm reduction that we're doing, so we can so we can look at opportunities to reduce harm in communities and save some lives.
And I'm learning so much myself doing this initiative, because I'm a concealed weapon carrier and I'm a country girl. So y'all know I can shoot, and I'm not afraid of guns. However,
remind me to be on your good side.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Listen,
not only do you have the weapons, you have the Lord as well on your side too. So,
amen, amen,
if one
amen,
doesn't work,
amen.
the other one will.
That's a wonderful point you made. So when we first started doing some of the work with barbers, and so yeah, I don't carry a gun. So but and so what I realized is when I started going to barbershop, everybody was packing Red Tam. All of them had guns. And so when I went into barbershops and I'm having this dialogue and conversation with them about getting rid of your guns, they're looking at me like I was crazy. And so what we realized, and a part of the initiative that we started, and what we're going to do is we had to start a conversation about something. It's called counseling on access to lethal means. It's a psychoeducational program. So it teaches people about gun safety. And so in order for us, and so we started providing the stats about gun safety, gun storage, and giving the barbers these statistics about suicide. And when they started seeing these suicide numbers and the numbers that I start talking with you, we start unpacking the data. They started to become interested. We start taking some of that data to some of the church mamas, and they started grandmas and folks that are carrying guns. And a lot of folks at churches, they carrying guns. You know, a lot of folks at DSS, I'm finding people got guns. And so now as we're going and we start to unpack that data and they hear that data, that makes them invest and they want to do something about it. So providing the psychoeducation, so we just can't go and tell them like this, you know, that ain't working. Provide the data, give them the psychoeducation, pull at the heartstring. This is killing our babies and destroying our families. When we present it that way, you got them. They want to help. So they want to say, tell us what they want to say. What I think someone to ask, tell me what I can do to become involved, and then they want to coalesce around it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I knew you're telling the truth. I remember I was singing in a choir I was in California, and we took a visit to Los Angeles, California. And I'm in the choir stand, and the preacher, he was preaching, man. He was preaching up a storm. He's sweating, reaching in his back pocket to get his handkerchief, and I saw a gun on it. He had a gun. I said, the preacher's packing? Oh my goodness, what's going on here? But anyway, how with you, Rev Tam, Reverend Tam, and Dr. Harris, I know you take your message to the communities and stuff like that, the barbershop, the parks, and things of that nature. What about the schools? Are the schools doing enough to address suicide, because their children are killing themselves? Are they addressing, are doing enough? I know that's a dumb question. Are they doing enough? Because they could do more to get the information out, to talk about mental health, talk about bullying in the schools and in the churches. What can the schools and the churches do more of to counteract this or prevent this, and maybe even reduce the amount of suicide that we're having with our children?
So
Dr. Harris?
Yeah, so we'll tag team it, but this is what we know. So we decided that we're going to go to environments or places that welcome us. And so we know the barbershops. That's a place that we know they're going to welcome us and we can go there. And so, you know, I think we got to get the right partnership, the right relationship. And I'll say with us, we haven't gotten that yet. Not to say it won't happen. And I know, Rev Tam, I think as we're building our partnership, our relationship, you know, there may be a place that we'll eventually go. But right now we're starting at some of the places where the doors are welcome. We got to start somewhere. You know, we're starting with the churches, starting about, and the other thing too is we go to a lot of community events. Like they did a huge event at a rodeo, and I think they gave away 300 or 400 guns at that rodeo. And we did one at DSS, and I know, and we do these community health fairs. We did one with and we give away lots of people. And at a DSS event, we gave away 200 gun locks. And so we just go where people where we're able to reach, where people invite us. And so we just don't go to one specific place. It's wherever we keep gun locks on us to make sure that we can have them to go wherever people will allow us, and all types of places.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so
Reverend
I
Tam, let me
really,
ask you.
go ahead. What would you want to ask?
No, go on, Reverend Tam.
I was going to say, I
was
really
going to
can't.
ask.
What you going to ask me, William?
Come on, ask it. Who going to ask? Get it out. Come on with it. Come on with it.
Yeah, I'm still on this because I'm trying to understand, why wouldn't a school welcome you guys to come in? I'm a financial advisor, and I used to go to elementary schools, middle schools, and even high schools, and I would give workshops. Or would the schools allow you to come in and give a workshop on safety and or suicide prevention and address these issues that are causing harm right now? Reverend Tam, that's what I would add to ask.
And so, and like, I really don't have that relationship with the schools. But I'm sure that eventually we will work our way up to that. Like Dr. Harris said, we're in the beginning stages, but the churches are welcoming to us, and we're focusing on those avenues that people are opening their doors to us. Okay. But what the good news is, yes, in churches, they're using every opportunity. When it's Mental Health Awareness Month now, they're paying. Mental Health Awareness Month is actually being recognized now throughout all the organizations. If you look on anybody's Facebook page, everybody is doing something during the month when it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So we are having more conversation and more dialogue about it. People are giving it different names, whatever it is, but people are really paying now more attention to mental health needs. And I think that this is so wonderful about the Narcan. I was intrigued by that myself. I didn't even know they made anything like that. But what we've learned in the education that goes with it, say for instance, I take high blood pressure medicine. As a matter of fact, I've been taking it ever since I was online for swing back in 1980 some. So however, but at this age now, that's right, Clayton. But anyway, so at this age, sometimes I forget because I don't have a pill box. And I learned that if I take my pills and in the morning and I don't think about it in the afternoon and I take them again, and if I realize I've taken an overdose, I could use the Narcan. And it will sustain me to be able to get to the hospital. So there are all kinds of ways out there that people are accidentally overdosing themselves also. It's more than them voluntarily doing it. There are a lot of accidental deaths, especially in our senior community. People leave their medications up open and laying out. I own group homes. Trust me, we have to account for meds for everything. Mm-hmm. If one pill is missing, it's an incident report. Mm-hmm. However, people leave their medications laying around for their children. Your child, anybody could take it by accident. The kid could take it by accident. But then we have these mechanisms. We have to teach people these things. Utilize these resources that you have available. They are preventive measures. So we just want to educate the people.
Right. What are some of the things, both of you can answer this, what are some of the things our children are telling you? When you have these conversations with our children, what are some of the things that they are telling you that trouble them or bother them in their everyday life, day-to-day life? Dr. Harris?
Yeah. I think the impact of bullying. I'm hearing a lot of bullying, social media, and I think the addiction around social media, and particularly the amount of time that they're on social media, the bullying that occurs on social media, the pressure around social media, particularly around, you talk about Instagram, Twitter, the likes and the pressure around all of that. I think that's a lot of what they discuss, how dependent their lives are wrapped up, on all of that. And a lot of times they're talking about depression and anxiety. So like they're able to name some of the terms, they know what like, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling anxious. And so that, they're saying that they're feeling overwhelmed, and they're able to name some of these feelings, naming some of these emotions, and, what that feels like. And the struggles of watching some of their friends go through that.
So suicide
Wow,
ideation is real in the teen in the, I want to say I see it more in my facilities because I have adults 18 and up. And so one of the main things that I see is actually, Dr. Harris touched on it. It's transgender.
Yeah.
I have a member that is transgender. He might wear leggings today, and the day in the afternoon he has on sweatpants. And when somebody confronts him about it, the shame that he feels with that, because society is not processing that right. It puts him into a depression. And then it's a whole de-escalation that we have to go through. It's a whole protocol that we've had the psychiatrist to write up about his plan, his IEP, his plan of correction. It's very intense. And it only comes with, it doesn't say give him a PRN. It doesn't say that. You know what it says? The psychiatrist writes this down. He has to have a one-on-one conversation with someone that he trusts. So that's important. So building relationships and getting to that therapeutic place. When you're dealing with suicide ideation, Dr. Harris, this is what I've learned. You really can't let them know that you're having a therapy session with them. No. It has to be a normal session. Yeah. So you really have to you have to have that interpersonal relationship, but then as a qualified professional, you got to put on your mental health professional and be able to see what you can find out. Usually when my member goes into this crisis, it's because somebody has said something inappropriate to him, like, why you got fingernail polish on? So now we got to go back and do in-service training on our people, intense training on how are we doing this in our facilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rep Tam, those are the highest rates of suicide is in that community, so paying attention to that. And mm-hmm. you can imagine what that might look like now in times like these, when the erasure of pronouns and, when they can't validate and the way the laws and how they're feeling, around that, and things they could do and say that are not socially acceptable now, mm-hmm. that are less socially acceptable, in some places and not some places. And so, as their voices are softened or lessened, so, whereas they could be say and do more, and now don't do that, don't say that, you can't say that, pronouns now are not as important. And so you can imagine what that might feel like.
Yes, and certain things now are not appropriate for us to say.
Right. You used to advocate for in some ways and say, I can advocate, let's do it this way, or we're required. And now you're like, well, maybe I can do that, but absolutely, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's really something. And something you touched on that I think is overlooked, and that is social media. And I call it the good, bad, and the ugly, because social media has a lot of good qualities, but not used properly. Like you have TikTok, you have Facebook, and things of that nature. How much of this do you think with the suicide that children committing suicide, how much do you think that contributes to social media and the uses of social media and not being monitored by their parents? Dr. Harris?
Well, I don't know the data. I don't know the data. Dr. Harris might have some more accurate numbers than I do, but I do know that social media is very much a part. It's very much one of the things that that can sometimes lead them to that, if not managed properly, as you said, my brother William, if not managed properly, because they go into a whole different community. See, their ISP plan with me might say, limit their social media time. But trust me, in technology, they have a whole way of getting into that. And what I find is that they go into a community on these social media platforms. And when they get on these communities, then you're right. There's no supervision, and they get death threats. They get people picking at them. I've had people come show up at the group home because somebody done said something to them on social media. And we can say, and then, we have to follow certain rules. There are certain things we can't restrict, but we are responsible for health, safety, and well-being. So now we got to go back to the team and go back and say, listen, that somehow they can find a way to communicate. So social media, people do bully them, especially if they even know anything that they might get on social media and say something like, well, I missed my med today. Well, okay, now you've opened it up to the whole community, you've opened yourself up to attack. And so I have heard of situations in my own facility of people being just bullied through social media that triggers a behavior. And now we got a suicidal call for ideation. So it does happen.
Is there something?
Yeah. So
right. I tell you, social media, like I said, and the parents, as parents, we get lazy, and we allow social media, or the computer and all of these devices babysit our children instead of monitoring what our children are doing. So I think parents really have to take some ownership in this as well. What do you guys have to say about that?
Yeah, I definitely do. So you asked a little bit about that in the last question. So I think I read this study last week, and it said that particularly teenage girls are a lot more vulnerable than teenage boys. And so the study I read, it said that, and it was a 10-year study, and it said that for people that were on 2 to 3 hours daily, and that were 13 years old, they had a higher rate for suicide as young adults. So if they were on for 2 to 3 hours, they had a higher rate of suicide. Then also it says that the more they're on, so if they're on 4 hours or more, that was going to also have the highest rates of depression. So the more they're on, that's going to increase their rates of depression and increase their rates of suicidal ideation. That was a 2025 study. So we definitely want to pay attention, to the length of time. And I think the earlier point you made, that it can become difficult to manage. It can become a task and a job, to watch our kids and observe them, to see how, if they're on it, and, to make sure they get off at a reasonable hour. When we look at how much time they're sleeping, we're looking at these studies about, decreased sleep and anxiety that's caused by decreased sleep. And, the algorithms as they're, watching that'll send that what's created around that, and paying attention to that and these different algorithms that are created when they're on that.
Tiffany?
Yes, I do have a two-part question. One is, I think this will be more so directed to Sister Tam. I know earlier you guys were talking about how this is mental health, and in regards to the churches being open to receiving you guys, and one of the things that had just came to mind was, and I know you cover South Carolina as well, but do you know if anyone has reached out or is working with the church in Charleston where they were hit a few years back? Because, we had a brother whose wife passed away with the shooting that occurred. You know what I'm referring to?
You talking about Emmanuel in Charleston?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure that's going to be on the president's agenda. Lauren Crawford is the president, and so we're doing North Carolina first. So we're going to be like the the poster child children, and we're going to start it first. So, but I'm sure they will not have any problem with doing anything of that magnitude in that level. And I'm sure Lauren knows people. That's not her church, but it is a couple of sisters church in their chapter. So that's something that we could look like, and you can travel with me.
I like how you just brought that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. My other question was, you guys were talking about how the suicide rate is affecting the younger crowd, and unfortunately, is really demographic between the ages of 5 and like let's just say 18 or so. Have you guys done the studies or talk to the parents to see, because if it started with the parents, because we talked about depression, we talked about anxiety. Have you guys looked into seeing, are the parents this way as well? Because I also understand that this could technically be like a family thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to say genetics, but like I would say, I would go as far as say like a family. I don't want to say a family curse, but you can tell that, okay, this person did it, and then that person did. You know what I'm saying? So have you guys looked to see, has any of this started with the parents or any of the close relatives?
I don't know of any situations like that, but minister, you do know a chapter and a verse can break any curse. You do know that, right?
Oh, oh.
Go ahead, let them know. Let them know what it is.
That is
Okay.
the word of the night right there.
Amen.
Okay. And Dr. Tammy, give us your information. And Reverend Tammy, I know you're on your way to being a doctor.
You just spoke it. I received it. I received that. I received that.
All right then. As a matter of fact, I was talking to our dear sister Rock. And again, I know Robert had mentioned this earlier, but Rock, our wonderful program director,
Isn't she
she's the
wonderful?
reason why
I love her.
here. She is absolutely fantastic. And I say this to her, and also I say it publicly. This program would not be what it is without her. And I can tell you that because she keeps everything organized. Yes, she is absolutely amazing. So would you give us your information on how to contact you? And Robert, if you will, we'll put this on the screen here. Reverend Tammy, how can people contact you and your ministry if they need to reach out to you? And Dr. Harris, would you give us the same information? How can they reach you, Reverend Tam?
They can go to RUSMED6.com. My whole life is on that website.
Okay. Repeat that.
R as in Robert, U as in Uncle, S as in Sam, M as in Mary, E as in Edward, D as in David, the number 6.com. That's my that's RUSMED Consultants website, and my contact information there you can find.
Okay, Robert, you got that? He's pretty fast, I'm sure.
Can I put it in?
Okay, and okay, yes, please do. And Dr. Harris,
Yeah,
your contact information, please.
Yeah. So my website is drrharris.com. And also my Instagram is Dr. Rodney E. Harris, Dr. Rodney E. Harris. And I'll put it in the chat too.
Okay, put that in the chat, and I'm going to display that here. Okay. I think we're good so far.
Yes.
Got a question, and this has to do with the political climate today. And the reason why I bring this up, in Minnesota, this young man, it's 5 years old, young boy. His dad was taken into custody by ICE, and he was also, and both were sent to Texas. And his classmates, they wrote something. They were writing letters, and they were asking, why do you guys have, and they addressed these letters to ICE, why do you guys have to be so mean? And now we're talking about 5 and 6 year old children. Okay. And my question to both of you, how do you think, because children pay attention, we may not think that they're paying attention to something as sophisticated or lack of politics, but they are paying attention to everything. How do you think that is affecting their mental health and their mental being? How do you think, Reverend Tam? And then I want to go to Dr. Hers.
Well, it's obviously they put it in writing, and I think that they are terrified. I think that one of their classmates, a 5-year-old, that was traumatizing for the kids, and it's traumatizing for them because now they're all feeling like, is ICE gonna come and get me? ICE is like the big
Yes.
bad booger man now. Okay, so of course, and I hope that I pray, and I'm gonna really. I've been praying for Minnesota anyway, but I'm gonna pray for those. I hadn't heard that information, so thank you for sharing that, Brother William, because I will be praying for those. I didn't think about how devastating that would be for his classmates. Absolutely, so they need therapy, and more. Of course, Minnesota needs to be continually covered with prayer.
Yeah, and I think
Absolutely.
when we look at community trauma and how communities are impacted, that it extends, with the kids, and how it extends to their families, and how it extends to their communities, and so how one little thing, and so that this will impact them the rest of their life. Like this trauma will leave a wound. So it's an open wound that they will remember, and the fear that's instilled in them, that they are going to remember this, and other kids are going to see it, and that it's instilled in their brain of what they're having to experience it. And so I think the long range impact of that, we don't know. It'll take years to study it. You won't know.
Right.
It'll take years for us to kind of figure out the impact of what this will do to them.
Yeah, amazing, because now I have there is a good friend of mine who is in Minnesota, and he and his wife founded the East Side Freedom Library in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I asked him, Peter Radcliffe, Dr. Peter Radcliffe, he taught Black history for 40 years, and just an amazing, amazing gentleman. And I said, Peter, how are you? He said, I said, look like things might get better. He said, Brother Brown, they are worse than we thought. He said, but he's encouraged because the communities are coming together, supporting one another. You have the teachers and you have the community members that are taking food to these migrants, these immigrants, right? And then see, this is the thing about it. Also, the father and son that I'm talking about, they are here legally. They are going through the asylum process. They go to have all their hearings, go into all their hearings, but ICE is still picking them up. They're doing things the right way, but still them being punished and penalized for that. And like you said, Dr. Hurst, we don't know the impact that this is going to have from years to come. And so I think that what we try to do here is connect the dots around the country with Groove Swing Speaks. I'm so proud of Tiffany and Robert, and we have other panelists like Tanisha Holm, Nakia Watts, Tierra Van Meter, Sergeant Clayton Brown, and he's been trying to get in for over 45 minutes or so, and he's having some problems with his system, right? But the impact, and you have even adults out here, and it's a sad thing that are evil. They laughed at the fact that that woman got shot in Minnesota. They laughed at the fact that this nurse got shot in Minnesota, and it boggles my mind to witness and hear the cruelty. And they would even go out, and we already know they will prey on our children. And the fastest way, I know we keep talking about this, social media, they will do that. Someone would say, well, I'm having a problem with this. And some nefarious individuals say, well, you should die anyway. And we've heard posts like that. You know, there's something that I saw on LinkedIn, and I shared this the other day. Um, and I'm going to read this real quick if I can pull it up. But it says, when you see something beautiful in someone, tell them. It may take a second to say, but for them, it could last a lifetime. And I reposted that with the caption saying, real power is gained by empowering others. And I really believe that. And also, the opposite is true. If you think about that, when you tear somebody down, that could last them a lifetime. Especially if they're not mentally strong enough to let's poo-poo it off or say no, dismiss that, or because we have to understand all of us are at different levels of understanding and learning and maturity. And our children, their brains are still developing. And so when we say something harmful to a child, I want both of you to address that, please. I can't believe we only got 4 minutes left to go. But anyway, let's talk to you, Reverend Tam. The impact.
I want to say that old school cliche that says sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt you. That's a lie from the pits of hell. Don't believe it.
It is.
Don't believe it. Words are painful. Words can bring rain. Words bring storms in your life, and words are very, very painful. It is easy to say that, and the only thing I could, yes, it hurts your feelings, and people have feelings, so we have to be very sensitive to that. But on the mental health side, it's hard to process sometimes, because how you would really believe that it's a lot of false prophets, a lot of false Christians, a lot of false people say they know the Lord. Because how can you say such ugly things to people and say those evil things that you just said, Brother William? So you know that they cannot love the Lord. They ain't serving the same God that me and you serve it. If they saying those kinds of ugly things, though. So the only thing I know, when people say those ugly things, though, I hope that they realize that every fiber of our being, every activity of our limbs, every way that we can speak, it is a miracle that God allows us every day. So don't abuse your miracles from God. Amen. Brother Harris.
So 2 things I want to say. Number one is that when you experience trauma, your body and your brain will remember it. And so sometimes when, birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, things like that happen, you say smells, those trauma reminders. And so like just remembering that. Also, that trauma can also become stuck in your body. And so like the importance of, talking trauma out, the importance of being able to have the opportunity to get what's unstuck, or what you see, of talking about it, and getting these things that are stuck in our body, these things that are stuck in our brain, having an opportunity to process it by someone that's trained to give your brain a chance to kind of talk about what you've seen, what you've experienced, what you feeling, versus just living through it and going through it, that it becomes difficult, just to kind of go through it. And oftentimes we don't give ourselves that opportunity. And though it's important for these kids and for everyone to have an opportunity to say, you know what we're seeing, it sucks. It is, it is difficult. It is difficult to watch. It is difficult to experience. And we need the support of each other. And that's all.
Well, we have to. I'm going to say this, and I won't. We got 1 minute, but guess what? If we go over a minute or two, I hope you guys don't mind. But I've got to share this. Also, would you two be open to coming on some of our other talk platforms? Platforms. We have other platforms throughout the week. Yeah. We'd love to have you both of you on. We'd love to do that. Okay, just want to make sure it's okay to share your information. And I want both of you to address this. I did a show. We did a show. I do a show on Sundays called the Boomerang Radio Show. And what I did, I exposed this KKK pastor. He's the grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. And he was talking about that the Bible does not talk a whole lot about black people. I said, women, hold it. And he has a church. And so what I'm saying we have to also, and people out there, you have to be also the type of the church that you're going through. what information are you being fed? Because someone says they of God, they're about the Lord, doesn't necessarily mean so. The church can harm as well. Dr. Tammy, and then Dr. Tam,
He
and
just
Dr.
keep giving
Harris.
it to me, Dr. Harris. I'm gonna take it every time
I
too. Thank
want
you.
you to take it. I want
Listen,
you to take it.
2 more classes for my dissertation, so I'm almost there. I'm ABD, okay?
You're
I'm
there.
ABD.
You're there. Okay. But
So
what do you say about? Go on, please.
you were saying that you exposed the KKK past?
I sure
Is that
did.
what, is that what you said? It sounded like to me
I
you
most
got the
certainly
story,
did.
not me. You got the story, not me.
Look, that's
No,
your
but the story,
testimony, right? That's your...
I
Absolutely.
most certainly did. I had to, I couldn't help it. I had to call him out.
You
I
had to
had
call
to.
it
I
out.
don't know,
And,
I
and
don't know what
listen,
God you serve.
listen,
Go
and
on.
let me be preacher here for a minute though, and that's exactly what we need to do in this time. Call them out as you see them, because
That's
I
right.
believe, as a devout Christian, that this is why we are going through all this. Tiffany, you can help me out on this. I think this is why we are going out through this, because God wants us to expose it. You said a statement, Brother William. You said something. Parents are lazy. We had gotten too lazy in the world. We really thought some of these people liked us.
Yeah.
We really thought that things were going to change. That's what we believe.
Yeah.
God is we in a
Mhm.
season of revelation. Okay,
That's right.
we in a season of
Come on.
revelation. God is revealing all this stuff to us. And how do we defeat the devil? Call him out, identify him,
I sure did.
and that is what you've done. So that's your testimony.
Yeah. Thank you, my
Yeah.
sister.
Yeah.
Dr. Harris.
Yeah, I just think, exactly. I agree with what Dr. Tam says, is that, when you see, you have to identify it. And you know what? And you got to be able to speak about it. When she talked about this advocacy with Dr. Gwen Newsom, one of the things she taught me was my responsibility when I saw something to say something. And she told me, when I was a counselor, she said, you can't sit in this office and see things going on the outside and not say something. And she told me, I expect you to do something. And I don't expect you to sit in this office and see things going on in our community and not do anything. And so, that's a charge I leave to all of us. And I know we here, we're doing things. We're going in the community and we're speaking against it and we're pointing them out. We're calling them out. We're making sure we're holding people accountable and we're doing something and making sure that our people, because we're going to be okay. We're going to make it through it.
Amen. We are.
We're going to be all right. Wow. This has been a pleasure having you two on this network. Thank you for gracing episode 105. 105. Thank you so much, Tiffany, Robert. Look, we'll talk soon, okay? This has been a joy. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
And I really love and appreciate everything that both of you are doing.
All right, Grace.
Enjoy your night.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy your Tuesday. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned to The Buzz 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with some of the finest programs you can find anywhere around the globe.
Groove by Groove is an international non-profit organization dedicated to community service and mentoring and heightening